Hello and welcome to OT, the podcast. We're here to talk about watches, time and how to spend it. I am over my jet lag and I'm still Felix Schultz.
Feeling as fresh as ever, Felix.
Fresh as a daisy, Andy. How are you doing?
Amazing, Felix. Amazing. This episode is, I think it's an episode about how to spend time.
How to spend time well. We're it's a bit different. This one we're chatting to a gentleman I've had the honour of meeting a few times over the years. Real name Alan Bloore, known online iconically as Hammer, who is auctioning off his watches very, very soon, in the next few days with Sotheby's in New York. If you're not familiar with the name, he is the Panerai guy, Paneristi, like one of the OGs, and he's got quite an interesting life story, and, you know, he's auctioning off his watches. He's nearing the end of his life, which is...
he will tell his story, I think, better than we can. But, I mean, Hammer's someone who... I remember when I got into watches, I remember you telling me about him because he's such a unique character and just an absolute big deal and really OG watches. I mean, he's been collecting watches since he was 16.
I think, for me, sort of he embodies that. You know, when Panerai, you talk about Panerai, all those limited editions in the community and all that sort of, it's because of him, largely. And he sort of, he embodies that sort of collecting community in a really touching way, as we will find out.
And he's been someone on our list to have on the show for such a long time. And it's a shame it's taken him selling all of his watches to make it happen, but there is no time like the present.
But also, you know, he's got other things going on in his life, as we'll find out. So, you know, chatting to people might not have been his biggest priority, but now he's motivated to, you know, try and get the best result for his estate, essentially.
Yeah, and he's done a lot of charitable work. He's done a lot of great things, and certainly achieved a lot with his life. And it's sort of, I'm interested to hear the perspective. I mean, being a watch collector and being around it and kind of having gone through so much, I'm kind of really curious to learn and hear from him and hear his perspective on, you know, these material goods and what his view has been and all that sort of stuff. So that'll be good. He's an absolute legend.
You can't take him with you. Anyway, we'll talk about Hammer, you know, as you've said, we'll talk about that far better than we can. Before that, we will also chat to this week's sponsor. Zodiac is sponsoring the next few weeks of podcasts, which is wonderful.
Welcome
and
aboard.
Today we're going to talk to Mike Pearson, who's the International Brand... Director of Brand Development. Almost had it there. So we're going to have a quick chat to him about the brand. But before then, Andy... You've been getting into mods.
Yes, not modding watches. I've been modding my detail setup. I've not really gone into...
Is this your car? Is this cleaning?
My car detailing. Yeah. Well, actually, no, I did install an intake on my car over the weekend.
Okay.
Have you
cleaned it?
I cleaned it. I gave it the weekly clean. I've been enjoying that. I haven't really talked too much about the level at which my car detailing has achieved, Felix, but it's been dramatic the last 12 months. I'm coming up to my 1-year anniversary. I don't even think I've shared with you, but I'm now on a German pressure washer. I've just upgraded that.
Is it a brand I would recognise? Is it Festool?
It's Kranzel. So it's right up there. It's a Kranzel, yeah. So I've gone Kranzel. Yep. I've upgraded the gun and lance system.
Are you using Nergenfoil detergents?
I have a shelf, a whole rack full of detergent, but I've just gotten on NV Car Care and Car Pro, couple of nice names. It's that bad that I actually have a trade account with the detail store that I shop at. Yeah, so I get trade pricing because I hit their threshold for spends.
Oh dear, Andy.
Yeah,
I've got a quick question. In the spirit of speaking to Hammer in a bit and, you know, sort of being a bit philosophical about watches, this isn't about a clean car, is it, Andy?
No.
What's it about?
You know, it ticks off a bit of my OCD, and it's nice me time. I can go out, I can wash the car. It's dirty when it starts, it's clean when it's finished. You get to try a whole bunch of different things and like tinker, and it's a hobby. It's a proper hobby. It's not like watches that have, you know, obviously become work.
Yep.
Yeah, it's become a job. and they're far too expensive to just keep buying watches every week. But you know what? $20, $40, $100 here and there on my detail stuff, you know, and it
Less
gets
the 20% trade discount.
yeah, less the trade discount. But so I've modded, you know, the guns, the attachments. I'm now modding like the hardware. So I'm putting quick change parts onto like the hoses and the guns just to save myself
Sure.
13 seconds.
Have you been cutting sponges into like the best shape to achieve?
Oh, I don't use sponges, Felix. It's all microfibers. We range from 300 GSM all the way up to 1000 GSM. We've got waffle microfibers for the glass. We've got buffing microfibers. We've got microfiber wash.
I like that you say we.
We've got it's just me. I've got A stock microfiber. I've got B stock. Yeah. So once it doesn't last, once it's it's nearing the end of being category A, it then becomes category B, which is good for interiors. And the final place for the microfibers, I love your face right now, is the wheels. So it's
I got a quick question. This is what I'm worried to ask.
Mm-hmm.
If Felix and Andy is to watches,
mm-hmm.
is there a Felix of your car cleaning?
Oh yeah. There's an absolute.
Who's car cleaning Felix?
Oh, that would be my detailer probably. Like we call each other and talk about products. Yeah. So he started off as a detailer. We've got some Christmas plans in the works. It's become more than just a transactional relationship.
We don't even have Christmas plans. We should do that. I was talking to my son about it.
We should definitely have them over. But so we'll talk up about products. I'll share my thoughts on things that I've bought that he's not bought yet, vice versa. Yeah, like actual phone calls about interior cleaners.
It is OC DC, the podcast company.
You know what? There is that stuff out there, and it's far more, it's far deeper than I can possibly go. But yeah, there's people like Obsessed Garage and Ammo NYC that do those like first wash in like 40 years, which is also
put them in the show notes, and I will link them up for people to
we will
obsess about. Make some new friends.
We will. It's a hobby.
About in Discord. Do we need a cleaning channel in Discord?
Probably. You know what? It's just nice to have a hobby that's not monetized yet.
Yeah, agree. Andy, speaking of hobbies that are monetized, that's a terrible segue. It makes no sense whatsoever. But I started watching a Netflix series.
Okay.
Hot on the tail of Beckham.
Mm-hmm.
Robbie Williams.
Yep.
I'm at the point of my life, as are you, where our childhood is ripe for nostalgia.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a Netflix series where Robbie Williams, who has been video recording significantly for the last 30 years of his life, since take that like Handycam style. He hasn't watched any of the footage. He's now watching it. Like they've assembled edits,
and he gets to go watch it.
And he's watching it, and I'm fascinated by him, partially because he was so huge when I was growing up. But he's had a really interesting life.
Phenomenon. I've seen him live. He was very good.
Oh yeah. What year did you see him live?
I would say it was 2018.
Okay, so fairly recent.
Yeah. He did like Rod Laver or something. He was a lot of middle-aged women really enjoying themselves. It was a good time. The crowd was just as good as he was. You reminded me though that because Pamela Anderson did a similar thing. She had all these home recordings, and her son basically kind of helped, and they got together and did a documentary around her, kind of watching old videos. And it is, I wonder if our potential kids will have that experience.
I think about that with my photo album of 10,000. You know what I mean? Like that's what's going to happen with that again, tying into
What about your son? If he was to ever sort of go through and search his name through your phone, does that just weird you out?
Well, there's my phone's smart enough to like organize it all.
No, I meant like messages and stuff. He could just theoretically go through and just see every time you've complained about him.
Well, I don't really complain about my son too much.
In case he's listening. In 30 years' time.
Future son, you're the best son.
The best.
Also, here's another. Can I say my favourite piece of Pamela Anderson content is her home renovation show?
Yep.
I don't know if you're across that. Excellent work. But before we get onto the main act, Alan Bloore and his significant collection, and a genuinely significant collection of watches. Panerai Rolex. He's got a cool Royal Australian Navy, sub, which is very good. Oh, by the way, here's a little insight. I got the press release from Sotheby's in Dubai, and I was having breakfast at the time, and James Dowling, Mr. Rolex, was sort of at the table next to me. I'm like, oh wow, this has happened, and he's like, oh, Can you forward that to me? He's got a dial I want. So
There you go. There you go. Well, he bought that sub from Jed McCormack. So
did he indeed?
Yes,
Cool.
it's
Small
he's
world.
tapped in. He's tapped into the scenes. But before we do that, Felix, you were going to say we have to get Mike Pearson.
Yes, as we said at the start, Zodiac's International Director of Brand Development, on to talk about the history and heritage of this very cool brand.
What a guy. Let's do it.
Mike, it's lovely to chat to you again about Zodiac. First of all, Zodiac's obviously a name that's been around for a while. Can you tell us a little bit about the heritage of the brand?
Sure. Well, it's an old name, and it's great to see you all as well. And thanks for chatting. But it's been around for 141 years. It was a family-owned brand for a century. And I think what a lot of our modern-day watch collectors know of are certain models, such as the Seawolf or the Astrographic. But a lot of what I'm doing now is retelling what the iconography of the brand was all about. Before the Seawolf in 1953, there was 70 years of innovation and 100 years of continuous family ownership up until the Quartz era. And so when you look at the heritage and the history of what we know in snippets, and I say we within the watch community, it's really quite special, the fact that when a lot of brands will go to a part of an era to get a certain aesthetic to build part of their collection out, Zodiac can go back to a certain page and pick out this type of movement or this type of aesthetic. But what I love that we're doing now, obviously people know us as colourful watches. They've seen a lot of the boldness we've got in our style. But you've also got that real genuine way that we're being designed. And we're going back to our aesthetic, our designs, our DNA. And even though it had I say arguably 30 years of a rocky patch with different ownership groups, it's never really gone away. So through good or for bad, it's meant something to the industry. It's obviously very, very small compared to what it used to be. But those dive era watches, especially the Seawolf, changed the game, not just for Zodiac, but for everybody. And that's kind of where we are today.
Amazing. And you're obviously super passionate about watches, but also Zodiac, and it comes through. When do you think the golden era for Zodiac was, looking at the history books, that, the brand's most excited to kind of point to and start, doing more work with?
That's a brilliant question. I think the 50s, if you look at when the Seawolf came out in 1953, that came out alongside Blancpain before Rolex did the Submariner. And every single big watch company, Swiss watch company, then added a dive watch in. What was cool about the Seawolf is that was very different to everything else. It was very robust. The case back was designed very differently. So it was 300 meters water resistance. It had a very, very different aesthetic with those triangular shark tooth hands and numerals. And not only was it trusted by the watch buying public, it got bought in, especially here in America where I live, by the US military. So Army, Air Force, Navy, they took the watch in. And so the next 30 years, not only was it massively successful in terms of the watch community and watch buyers, all types of different people, but it was also all over the world in good or bad scenarios, but it was trusted. And I think that's the best thing I can say. And it got to the point where at the end of the 70s, Zodiac was making 300,000 watches a year. So it was global, it was massive. And it also kept up with the times. It was very innovative with its movement. But if you look at the colors that we do today, a lot of it correlates to what was going on back then. Deco style, very bold coloring. Mm-hmm. Today, we might do it for loom or for a storytelling purpose. Back then, a bold orange was so you could see it under the water as you started to lose the light. So there was always a theme about it. But those vintage Zodiacs, especially what we're doing today, from the 50s to the 70s, I think they're pretty hard to touch.
Mike, you mentioned just before about, sort of the communities discovering Zodiac as the brand gets more prominence in the market. Mm-hmm. Are they learning that from you, or are they sort of ferreting out information themselves? Where is this archival knowledge coming from?
Oh, I think that's one thing I'm discovering as well. If you look through the vintage Zodiac collectors, through the forums, and there's a really good vintage Zodiac forum out there, the Facebook pages, obviously Instagram, there's a lot of people that would go to what they might have found through their dad or their grandfather and going through old drawers and finding old Zodiacs. And they know that these watches and these movements were built and designed by the Calam family who owned it for that century. Mm-hmm. What I will say that what we've done today, probably better than what's been done over the last 20 years, is that we're respecting what that was. And I think we're trying to marry the two worlds together. So I am doing a ton of podcasts. I'm obviously out there putting the name of the brand out, but we're training the team who we've empowered to sell it, and then you've obviously trained the teams who are behind the showcase, and then it becomes very organic. Then you've got the community that we've got today, obviously through forums, you've got podcasts, but it's also that bit of glass in between the stores, or even the pages on a website, where people are finding out that we've got a great movement now. Everything's mechanical, everything's Swiss. The designs come from a genuine place. And I think we've been known, obviously we're owned by a big company, Fossil, but we're the only Swiss brand that they own. And so what I think we've got to try and break down in some ways is that we're not a fashion brand. We are a Swiss brand owned by a big company, and they're custodians to the name. And as soon as the community started to see that, they were like, oh, it's not just trying to make money, or because we don't make enough watches to make money just yet. We are the best of that group, and they're investing money into where we're built, how we're built, what we're powered by. And the designs, no matter how crazy, when you look through materials or colors or all the different stories that we're trying to tell, you will see Zodiac. And I think that's why today it's really important what we're doing. So yeah, I've had my massive mouth all over the world, but it's taken a village, as they say, and you guys are a huge part of that. So thank you.
No, it's Zodiac has an interesting place from my perspective, sort of in the watch industry and in sort of the watch market and for consumers. And as you kind of point out, owned by Fossil, and it's sort of it's got a lot of credibility, which I've always found interesting, despite sort of that ownership. And it's been placed, right up there in the community, places like Hodinkee, places like Warnerwound, which we'll talk about later on. That collaborate with it and stock it. But I mean, Hodinkee's been selling it for a long time, and I'm sort of curious to hear your take on who you think Zodiac is for as a brand, and what Zodiac's place in watches is. Like, what is the offering is sort of $1,500 to $3,000 is sort of where the key price point is. You've mentioned dive watches, but what do you think Zodiac's here to serve, and how does it fit within sort of the watch market?
I think in terms of history, I think when you say the word icon, I think it can come across as a little bit self-serving, but I think for what the brand meant, especially when it was family owned for that century, it was a game changer with all the innovations that it made, not just through dive watches, but through mystery dials or first power reserves, first moon phases, even keeping up with quartz by doing the first LCD. There was a lot that was going on with Zodiac. I think today, with our price point and how many we make, which we probably make about 12,000 watches this year, so we're a baby brand compared to the size we were. It's like a startup with a huge history. But I think we sit there as a collector's watch. So if you love your Breitlings, your Rolexes, your Tudors, your Panerais, I think you have a collection. You're lucky enough. I think when you are wearing that type of watch, you also know that if you're hiking, biking, walking, working, going to the beach, sometimes you don't want to wear your sub. Sometimes you don't want to wear your Speedmaster. I think it's important that within your collection, you could then look from the bottom up. What's your first watch? Maybe it's a Fossil, then it's Timex. We've all gone through Storm watches or Adidas, Nike. You go through, you find your place. And then what's your first mechanical? Seiko. What's after that? There's a ton of choice. But I think when you look at our price point, there's not too much, especially with that history within it. And so if we've now, and I think we'll get into the movements later on, we've kind of got to the place where a movement, especially within our community, matters, but it can be trusted. I think we've got a really great product, but also because you've got that history and then something quite bold on the wrist in many cases with the colors and the design, I think we're a really good collector's piece. And so I don't think we're savvy enough to be somebody's first watch, but I don't think we're maybe I think cheap's the wrong word. Maybe we're not as affordable as being your first watch, because it's a good chunk of change. But if you do like watches and you think of Tissot up through to Oris and maybe touching entry-level Tag Heuer, Zodiac can sit there. And that's a really great place to be. And I think we're really, really cognizant of our price point. We're understanding that for 30, 40 years, the brand was kind of non-existent. And I also say this, I think it's good for your listeners to know as well. When Zodiac was first bought by Fossil in 2001, it was a shell. It had been taken apart over 3 different ownership groups. And so it had no reason or rhyme to go back to its great roots. It made fantastic fashion watches with the Zodiac name on it. What I will say to their credit again is that 10 years later, they started to invest back into Switzerland. So that's where the custodian words come from. They've learned really quickly what this name means to the community. And yeah, we're just a few years into really bringing it back, and I'm really proud of where we are.
Amazing. I want to kind of ask just quickly, what are the advantages of sort of having such a large group that owns Zodiac?
There's a lot of, you start with, I wouldn't say the negatives, but there's a lot of layers, and there's also a lot of educating as well. So if you think about, the ownership group, and then you've got the VPs, and they don't deal in these types of conversations you and I and Felix might have over a beer, or over a showcase in a high-end luxury store. They talk very much on a different level, and I've learned a lot from that. But also they've listened. And so that's been really encouraging that they've listened like that. And so they're maybe the challenges, but also they're the ones that can be fixed, because when they learn, they can attach rocket boosters to it. In terms of the positives, I go into my office, and it's a huge office. It used to be a mall. It used to be, I think, an old, in America, the medical industry is crazy, and they have these huge office blocks, and it used to be one of them as well. So you're rattling around this huge building with a few thousand people, and you can see people designing and stitching in bags. You can smell the tannery when they're putting together these leathers. Then you've got the guys within Fossil. They just did a Disney collaboration. They worked with Star Wars, so you can feel like a kid running around Toys R Us. And then you've got some of the unique things like Scargan that they own, or Armani, which are huge out there in Asia and parts of the world, which maybe I'd never even seen before. And then you've got some of the watch brands like Michelle, who are very, very much an American brand, but for ladies, it's huge. So you can see how they do it. And then you throw that all together, you see innovation and fashion at its forefront with color, material, and design, that sometimes I think the stiffness of the Swiss industry, we can get a little bit, within ourselves, but Fossil and fashion, it doesn't. And so what I will say is we are made in just outside of BLBN. We're going to have a movement factory just next door to that. That's where our magic happens, but the ideas will come from us here in the US. So it's a lovely marriage of seeing where we are, taking the best of it, grabbing the books and the old vintage Zodiacs, and then throwing some of the ideas over to our Swiss designers, and hopefully a good watch will come out of that 2 years later. But that's the big advantage, that you see so much of the industry that maybe we're not privy to in the Swiss world.
Fascinating, Mike. We'll talk more about the sort of the movement development side of things in the next episode. I just want to end this chat sort of a quick question. I'm sure you'll have a short one-word answer for it. What's one thing? What's one thing about Zodiac's legacy or history that you wish more people knew about?
Ooh, probably would say the longevity of the family ownership. The Kalam family, they have nothing to do with it anymore since the 80s. But what they stood for and what they did is untouched. I mean, you look at the Rolex website and you look through Hans Wilsdorf and you think about the Cartier legacy and Breitling. This was up there, and that family was amazing. It wasn't just one man, it was a whole family. And so that's what I wish more people would learn about. And that's what we're trying to do. So great question. Thanks for asking that.
That's awesome. Maybe we can, get your Google on with the Clam family and see what they're up to. Mike, great to chat to you about the history of Zodiac. Next episode, I'm going to talk about the future. Andy, that was Mike. To find out more about Zodiac, head to zodiacwatches.com. Or if you're in Australia, you can view the collection online at Time and Tide or in person in their Melbourne studio. We will throw all the required links in the show notes.
You've been to the studio, Felix?
I have. I saw the Zodiacs. They were there. They were proud. They were colourful. They were doing what Zodiacs do best.
I love it. Well, it's exciting to have Zodiac on board. It's great to kind of be working with them. We've both got Zodiac watches, and they've been on the radar a long time.
Speaking of radars, let's chat to the one and only Hammer.
It's Hammer time.
No. Andy, today's guest is many things. Sportsman, sailor, watch collector, rocker and a roller. For many people, Alan Bloore, as he is formerly known, is known only as Hammer, who is maybe synonymous with Panerai and Panerai collecting. He, the day after, if you're listening to this on Friday, he's on a plane heading off to New York to Sotheby's, where his collection of watches is being auctioned off. Hammer, I've known you for a few years now, but it's such an honour and a privilege to have you on OT. How you doing?
Same, mate. And look, I've read everything you've written. I know a lot about you, your history. And it's an absolute honour for me to be here. One, for Revolution as well. The brand is just my favourite brand. And mate, I love your work. You're the only one that can write about such a boring subject and 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 find myself engaging with what you're writing. I'm going, oh, geez, that's good. Oh, yeah. And you might be talking about something I have absolutely no understanding of. So it's an absolute pleasure to be here. And I'm very honoured to have the chance. So thank you to you both, Andy and Felix. It's an honour.
Well, look, I think let's get the mutual hyping each other up out of the way.
I hate you both.
Well done. Hey, first question. You've chosen the name Hammer to represent yourself online. Two versions of this, two little icebreakers. Are you related to MC Hammer? And what's your favourite type of hammer?
Yeah, no. So you can't see it, but where I'm looking right now, someone in the early 2000s, before the accident, got me the MC Hammer doll. They made a doll, like a collectible, and it's in a case and everything. And so it's got MC Hammer and it's got him all dressed up. So he's sitting up there, and right next to him is another mate of mine brought me a 1-to-1 Thor's hammer. Like, I can barely lift the bugger of the thing. It's bloody heavy, but it's a true 1-to-1, and it was done, and I believe it was very expensive. And so I've got Thor's hammer, which is a pretty impressive hammer, and then right next to it I've got MC Hammer. But no, someone else actually gave me that nickname, funnily enough. It's about 30 odd years ago, 30 plus years ago.
I think you're going to have to tell us how you got the nickname Hammer.
Well, it could be worse. So this fella was going along, I was standing in a line, and, us Australians, we like to call it Schultzy. We like nicknames, And I'm standing in a line, and the bloke next to me on the left, the guy's like 6'4", and when you hear the name Rambo, close your eyes, imagine that at 6'4". He was a freak. And I'm like, standing there going, huh? And then the other guy next to me, a little bit shorter than me, had a bit of, maybe a light blonde, bit of gingery. So a guy comes along and goes, right on, here's your name, boom, boom, boom. So he looks at the guy to the left and he goes, oh, Jesus, you're Rambo. And I'm thinking, that's not too bad, And he looked at me and he said, Christ, how many times have you been hit in the head? You look like you've been hit in the head with a hammer a million times. I've got a lot of scars in my hairline when it's shaved. And he said, you're a hammer. And I'm thinking, hang on a minute, that doesn't sound too good. And then the guy next to me, he goes, son, have you showered today? Because you stink. You're stinky. And to this day, we still call each other, and we're all still friends. And that guy was so stigmatized, I reckon he spends half his salary on personal hygiene things. Because whenever we're out, we're like, oh, yes, this is Rambo, this is Stinky. And everyone sort of moves away like that. So he's gone through life where I thought, Hammer's not that bad, then I'll cop that sweet.
That's a cool nickname. It's a powerful nickname. I like it. Can you tell us why you're selling your watches, Hammer?
Sure. So I started in the watch world in about the mid-1980s. And, at a very early age, I knew watches were going to be an intrinsic sort of part of my life. And, I was always really interested. And then when I was 16, I had the lucky chance to tour the Rolex factory.
Nice.
And so, yeah, it was actually. And when I left with a Submariner, and, kind of the rest is history. So I've always been, since a little boy, I have this affinity for watches. And then would have been about 1997, 98, this thing called the Web of Internet, this Web of Internet, that's what it's called, started. And all of a sudden I could take this passion I had, which extended past the actual outside of the watch, but also to the inside of the watch. And it was like the world opened up. And, I went from a guy who used to sit in a walk-in wardrobe pulling Omega Seamasters apart. One, for example, I remember, just trying to figure out how to take them apart, put them back together again. And I've unscrewed this one screw and the whole thing just went poof. And I thought, oh, Jesus, I'm never going to be able to put that one back together again. And, and then all of a sudden, I found this internet, and I found these watch forums, and I found out that I'm not the only bloke in the world that feels this way about watches. There's more. There's more of us. You know, and one thing a lot of people always ask me all the time, because you know it's been a long time now, and they ask me, you know, what's the key to being a successful watch collector? And I've never really thought of myself as a watch collector, but I guess I am. They go, well, what's the key? And I said, well, buy what you love what you buy, and you'll be the most successful watch collector in the world. You know, it sort of went hand in hand. And, you know, then I found a forum, and then I was able to, you know, share this love and this passion, and, you know, and so it was up to about 2005. And it was weird because back then, you know, I found a Panerai, a vintage Panerai in an Italian military. I was a military vintage Rolex collector in the 80s, 90s. And I found this vintage Panerai. And so when I went into the internet, you know, and typed in, and it came up this Paneristi.com. And, you know, I thought, oh, wonder what that is. I go there, and it's an internet. And it's a website, and it's a watch forum. And it took me about 6 months to work up the courage to actually make a post and say, hi, I'm the blunder from down under. And, you know, and I met all of these guys. And over that first 5 years, I guess because we never thought we'd meet each other in person, we tended to tell each other things that you wouldn't even tell your partner or your family. Or, you know, I knew guys who were going through horrible divorces, loss of a family member, you know, and you sort of always felt like you could say anything you want because these people, you would never actually meet them. And so in 2005, I was involved in a maritime accident. And as a result of that, I found myself going down, hitting the water, going under the water. It was like something from a movie, right? And sort of, I'm slowly going down and I'm slipping. And, you know, it was about 5 in the morning. The sun was coming up. The top of the water was warm, you know. It was starting to get darker. And like when I'm getting to the waterline, I'm thinking, take a deep breath. And it's not like you go, oh, I've just had a spinal cord injury. You don't think that. And as I'm sinking about a metre under the water, I'm going, crikey, I'm going to die. And I just kept thinking, can't die today. I'm busy. I've got to take my son here. My daughter was only 4 months old. I've got this thing. Today's just the wrong day to die. It's a bad day to die. And luckily, a couple of divers, when they got me, and they slowly float me to the surface. And I'm thinking, don't like go slow, guys. Like I've got no oxygen. I'm starting to breathe in the salt water. So it's got me there. Helicopter came. They exfilled me. And so at that point in time, I knew I'd done something. I heard a lot of noises and cracks and things when I went overboard. And, you know, that started this, well, it started the life that I'd worked so hard for and absolutely loved. That life was gone and gone forever. And I end up at the only hospital in my state, in Brisbane, that's got a spinal unit. The ambulance loads me there. And they didn't tell me for the first couple of days what I had. I'm just laying there thinking, well, sooner or later, you know, they'll say, okay, well, you're booked in for surgery and I'll be good to go. I didn't know. They keep all that away from you in the beginning. And so, you know, at the first, you know, okay, well, we've booked your surgery for Friday. Well, okay, I'm booked in for Friday. 6 o'clock in the morning, you're first in theatre. Okay, great. So the night before, they come around with like this indemnity thing you've got to sign, which admits to the fact you accept that if you die, that's life and you're not going to sue them. You know, and so the doctor was saying to me, have you got your affairs in order? And I'm like, what does that even mean? You know, I was 10 foot tall and bulletproof, and now all of a sudden I couldn't move. Like, I'm paralysed from the armpits down. I can use one arm or the other, but if I try to use them both together, I just fall straight on the ground. And so, you know, and he goes, "Got your fares in?" Or I go, "I don't know. Have you got a will?" I said, "No, never really thought about that." And so the next day, they put the surgery. I had 3 days. Had my family solicitor come into the hospital, and we filled out a few jotted notes, and then he came back the next day, and we signed on the thing, and all of a sudden I had a will. And so the guy's like, "You got your affairs in order, sign the indemnity, off you go." And it was about an 8 or 9 hour surgery. And in fact, it ran so late that by the time they got me out of theatre and post-op recovery, the lifts had all been turned off at the hospital. And the spinal unit isn't in the main hospital.
Right.
It's like out the back of the hospital. So here I am, I'm on a gurney from theatre. I've just had, 9 hours worth of spinal surgery done. And they had to take me down the road in front of the hospital, down onto the bottom of the road, turn me around, then push me up the other side and make another right-hand turn. And I'm in the gurney going like this can't be real good for the surgery. And then I get to the spinal unit, I go in, and I started getting quite unwell. That's a term the doctors love to use, unwell. And that was probably day 4. I started getting really, really sick, and that's when they said, "Look, we've got some bad news for you." I'm like, "Okay, we're going to need to repeat the surgery because you've got staph. You've got staph in the wound." I'm thinking, don't remember asking for that. So, we're going to have to take you in this Friday and cut out all the necrotic tissue and cut the margins. And I'm like, okay, another lot of indemnity, affairs in order, yeah. And then I go and I have that surgery. And there's a marker in the blood. It's called CRP. It stands for C-reactive protein. And it's kind of like a speedometer for how much infection is in your body. You two strapping young fellas, you probably might have a CRP of 10 or something. At this point, I think I was 300 and something.
Wow.
So I go in, I have the next surgery, and they cut up. The scar is horrific. I used to wear singlets, and kids, as I'd roll past, would turn, look at the scar and start crying. Like, They had to cut so much flesh. I don't even know how they got it to. Anyway, so great. I'm there, but I'm getting sicker, and I'm getting sicker, and I'm thinking, that's not good, and my CRP's going up. And that's when they come about 3 days later and say, "Well, we got some bad news for you." Okay. The staph has now made its way, and it's into the bone. So we're going to have to take you back to theatre Friday, and we have to cut out the margins again, and we're going to have to do some work on the bones and try and remove the infection. Okay, great. So, all right, sign the indemnity again, off I go. And I have the surgery, same thing. At least now they've learnt to not turn the lids off after 10 o'clock.
Yeah, that's a positive, yeah.
Pretty handy. And so, okay, off I go, and I come back, and now I'm getting even sicker. My CRP was well over 420, I think. My dog is in front of me demanding to go past. And so now I'm starting to get that sick that I'm thinking, this can't be good. So they bring me, and I go, "Okay, you're going in on Thursday." They bring me the indemnity, and the indemnity, compared to the others, was like 4 times thicker. And that was when the doctor said to me, "Mate, you've got a really, really poor chance of surviving this surgery. But if we don't do it, you won't last another day." And he said, "When you see your family tonight, you might just want to just take a moment with each of you." My daughter's 4 months old. What am I going to say to her that she's going to know? But, try and take the memory, because there's a really good chance, you won't survive it. So, okay, you got your affairs in order? Yeah, I got a will. And sign off on that. And wouldn't you know it, the stuff had made its way into the dura, which is the sheath of the spinal cord. and now I was pretty much doomed. I went in for the last surgery, and they had to open the spinal cord, and there was a lot of damage. And so my cord is actually cut in half just below the neck, and there's a gap of about probably, I don't know, 50 centimeters. Oh, what is it? Maybe 4 or 5 vertebrae. It's stitched at the bottom and stitched at the top, and there's just all rods holding me up. So I had the accident, and then I finally learnt the reality. But the night before that surgery, the only reason that I'm so sick, when you're at 440 CRP, you're sick. And I knew it, and I could feel it. And so when my family came in that night, like they're the only thing I'm fighting to stay alive for. And so when it came time to go, I'm watching the things that are my whole world walking out of the room. And I'm thinking, I might never see you guys again. And that was pretty rugged, and so needless to say, I didn't sleep real well that night. Eventually, luckily, I made it through. You can't kill weeds. You can poison them. You can chop them off. You can whack them with a weed whacker. You can dump concrete on them. But at the end of the day, they always find a way to surface, even if it's just to piss everyone off. So I survived. And I was content with what I'd learned from... Now, during the year I spent in the spinal unit learning how to live again as 2 arms and a head, there were some pretty bad moments. But you know what? I had a laptop and I had Paneristi.com. And so when things were just so bad, it didn't matter what time of the day or night it was, I could always log in and find love, find support, find happiness, That website and the members, it grew. At one point, it was by far the biggest singular brand watch forum in the world. And so, they all started doing fundraising to get me to a rehab program. I think there were 3 that were on the next flight over. At my bedside, literally 3 weeks after I've had the accident. And so whenever things got bad, I'd go to this website, I'd find these guys, and what would we talk about? And it wasn't porn, if that's what you're thinking. My wife, before that, I used
Not like
to
Felix.
What's anyone thinking that?
I heard into soft porn. He likes to be matching, the drapes and anyway, and so the toughest of times, I spent with these people that it meant so much, and then they all helped me. And so what I wanted to do, and I knew that from what I'd learnt, that, any chance of any recovery would only be in the first year. There's a thing called an Asia scale. So the height of where your damaged spinal cord is tells you basically, what will work and what won't. And then there's a thing called an Asia scale. There's Asia A, B, C, and D. And that's the complexity of how badly damaged the cord is. The only time I've ever got a bloody A in my entire life was then. And guess which one is you're totally stuffed, mate? An A. If I'd have got a D, which I'm used to, I'd have been great, So anyway, about 3 weeks after the accident, after I finished a year in the spinal unit, by myself, I'm on a plane, and I'm on my way to America, to a place called Carlsbad, to go to a spinal recovery program. And my mates got me there. They helped me. When I arrived there, there's like 120 people had flown in from all over the world.
Wow.
And we had the first ever. Back then, I could be wrong. I'm wrong a lot. But I'd never heard the term GTG or get together. Yeah. And so we had as far as I know, we had the first ever GTG. SoCal, actually it's in the back there, at 2007. And so the funniest thing was, here I am, in this, and here's these, I think it might have been 120 people. I can't remember. The thing is, I didn't know who they were.
Yep.
And so they're all giving me hugs and everything.
Yeah.
And I'm like, excuse me, could you just tell me what your login name is? Oh, I'm Heavy D. Oh, Dennis, shit, how you know, how's the kids? Your son's doing well at uni? Like, and so everyone that came to give me a hug, which went for like an hour, I had to ask them what was their login. And it was this incredible bond. It's like meeting a super big celebrity like Way or Felix or something.
Yeah.
You know, you know so much about them, and it's bizarre. And they know so much about you. It's like family you just hadn't met yet. And you know, during that time, they got me through the hardest part of it, and you know, it was incredible. I would never have survived the accident if I hadn't, in 1999, bought myself a Panerai watch. And in 1999, I found eBay too, which that was bad. I should have skipped that. But I found that's been expensive. But I found Paneristi.com. And here I am surrounded by 120 people flying in from all over the world to support me and give me love. I mean, you can't buy that. And you'd be an idiot if you try. There we go. And, you know, everything was going pretty well. I went and I traveled I promised my family that no matter what, anything they wanted to do, I would find a way to do it.
Yeah.
It might take me a bit longer, might have to think about, but I won't hold them back from anything. So I went to get-togethers and P-days all over the world. I went around the world twice. I didn't let anything hold me back.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it was 2019, everything changed for the second time. So that life number 2 that I'd worked so hard for, I didn't love it, but I liked it. It was good. I went to New York to one of my best mates, Jeff Hess, was running this vintage Rolex get-together. So I went there, and on the way, coming back from New York to come home, stopped with a mate in Minnesota, and got a taxi. Taxi driver dropped me off the top of the ramp hoisting, fell 1.2 meters to the ground, crushed legs, and so that then put me in bed for 3.5 out of 4.5 years. So, you know, and for those first 2 years, when I say I was in bed, I didn't get out of bed, not for anything. You know, I had six leg surgeries, I think. You know, in any event, getting to the main point of why am I selling and what's prompted this? I've heard the question, are your affairs in order? And I thought, yeah. So it would have been April. I spent 4 months, April, May, June, July, in 4 different hospitals. And at one point, my CRP was almost 500. And I remember, because I can't sense movement, but I remember hearing noises and running and people yelling and screaming. And I could just hear this guy going, Mr. Bloore, Mr. Bloore. And I'm thinking, he's been gone a long time now. I don't think you're going to find him. Because no one's ever called me Mr. Bloore. No one. Like my dad was Mr. Bloore. Yeah, I've been called Hammer for I don't know how long before Paneristi. And so, you know, I've sort of tried to open my eyes a bit. And this doctor, he was a doctor, he's about an inch away from my nose yelling at me. And I'm thinking in my head and going, I've got a bloody headache, mate. Can you ramp the volume down? He goes, Mr. Bloore, you're very unwell. We're rushing you to ICU. So I get to ICU and he says to me, he goes, so, you know, your affairs are in order. And I'm thinking, yeah, I've got a will, you know. Yeah, I'm thinking about it. I went, yeah, I got a will, but it's pretty bloody dated and a lot's changed since then. So he goes, your affairs in order. And I said, oh, why? And he said, we don't think you're going to make it. We rang your wife. My wife was on holidays in Adelaide, which is about a 4-hour flight. She'd only just landed, and they rang her and said, if you want to say goodbye, get on the first plane back, you might make it. Bring the family in, which is my 2 children. And, you know, what they told her was a little bit different to what they told me, but, you know, they didn't expect me to make it.
Hmm.
And so, like the weed I am, right? You know, he's in there, and your fair's in order. I'm like, And so, of course, she arrives rushing in there the next morning, and here I am still alive. And she's like, I knew it. I knew I couldn't be that lucky. I knew I couldn't be that lucky. There's no way he will die. He just doesn't die. He doesn't die. And so, you know, while I was there and knowing that I spent the next 3 months in hospital, different hospitals, in the last hospital, it happened again. Are your affairs in order? Yeah. And I was ready to finally discharge, right? And normally, before you're allowed to discharge from the hospital, the thing you wait for, you can be ready to go at 9 o'clock with your bags. But what you always end up waiting for is pharmacy, because they do all your medicines and that, and they're always, they got to get the meds. And anyway, pharmacy came quite early. So it's like 12 o'clock. Oh, you're not allowed to discharge yet. And I'm going, oh, excuse me, but what? Excuse me, I get part of the spinal injury is my mouth doesn't produce. Anyway, you're not allowed to discharge until you've seen Dr. Mahut. He's the infectious disease. And I'm going, what if I wait a minute? So he comes in about 1:30, 2 o'clock, and he sits down. He goes, I want to have a serious talk with you. And I said, it's pretty hard to do with me, mate. I don't take too much seriously. He said, you've really got to think about putting your affairs in order, because this is the second time this has happened in 3 years, and we've only got 2 tricks that we can use. I was having antibiotic bags mixed up at the university to their formula. He goes, we've kind of used all our little magic tricks up. The next time this happens, you will probably die. You really need to think about getting your affairs in order. So I thought, all right. And I took that pretty serious given the nature of it. I thought, okay, all right. So, you know, I'm thinking. The first thing is a will. Okay, got to do a will. Then you have to come up with, you know, an estate. Okay. Then you got to come up with what projects are you involved with that you need to finish. And, you know, obviously, the next time someone asked me that question, I wanted to say, yep, absolutely. So, you know, I thought I'm writing there, and I'm starting with a will. So I sketched a will out in my mind. I'm thinking about estate, and you know, I've never ever thought about my watches as being assets.
Yeah.
But they are, I guess. You know, to me, they're my love, they're my life, they're my passion. I build my own watches. I've learned how to anglaise, perla. How can they be assets? But they are, and they're the most important assets to me, because that's my life's love. 30-something years of collecting, and you know, I keep thinking. You hear it a lot, but the watch itself is just worth the sum of parts, right? Mm-hmm. What makes a watch worth more? It's the history, whether it's ancient history from World War II or modern history. You just got married. Sure. It's about a time. It's about a place. You know, people don't sell watches. Watches don't sell watches. Stories sell watches. And every watch I've collected has a cool or a great and interesting story behind it. And I thought, if I am not involved in the process of seeing the transfer of safe custody of the most important things in the world to me, you know, the thought of me dying at the next time, some stranger with a bloody letter to go into the safety deposit box, just grabbing all these watches that some of them, one took me 12 years to buy. You know, and just grabbing them and writing down the number, and flicking them off, and off they go. I wasn't going to have some complete stranger fondling my most precious things. I wanted to be involved in that. You know, I wanted to be able to see the safe custody. And so, knowing that the last time I went to New York, I spent nearly 4 years in bed. As a result, I'm going back to New York. I'm going to be there. The auction is December the 7th. And then I'm getting there a couple of days early. We're having a big event at the Panerai boutique, and so I want to be in the room. What people don't know is they're going to get a little card from me, thanking them for buying the particular watch, which will be on there, and giving them a way to get in touch with me so I can tell them the story behind the watch they bought. So I wanted to be in the room. I didn't want to just grab them. I wanted to be there. I wanted to and I wanted to then be in the room and try and meet as many people as I could. Seeing safe custody and seeing them land on like really well-credentialed wrists, that meant more to me than any assets or money. So I had, there were 5 things I needed to do to be able to say, yes, my affairs are in order. One's been going on for 4 years and 2 months. I finished that last month. One's been going on for 3.5 years. I finished that last month. This part is, and I can't finish the will because I can't finish the estate because that's pending the auction. And then that'll be done. And then the last one gets done in January. And so my goal is, by the end of January, if someone asks me the next one, are your affairs in order, for the first time in my life, I'm going to say, yes, sir, absolutely. And I just, it was too important to me to let someone else do that. I wanted to do that. And here's the funniest bloody thing. When they came, Sotheby's came to collect all the watches, guess where I am? In ICU again. And they had permission to get everything. I sort of told them where things were. I didn't see them. And so they took every watch I had. There were a few I was planning to keep, like at least 1 or 2 to tell the time. They took them all. If it wasn't for hiding a couple of watches in my bed, I'd have a bare wrist. I had to go into my authorised dealer Hourglass and buy a cheap Panerai so I had a bloody watch. First time in a quarter of a century I haven't had a Panerai.
Wow.
And, so anyway, they took the watches and, that's for me the single most important. And there will be nothing in my life that will have been more important than being able to see them go in a loving way, in a safe way, and to people who will see them as more than just the sum of parts, but to see them and to look after them for the next generation.
That's obviously I think your experience is both universal and extreme. Like you've had to confront your mortality far more consciously than other people, and you've had to think about it so much more actively.
Yes.
Was it hard giving these things up, or is it okay? While they're still stories and very precious to you, are they just things?
Why am I surprised you of all people picked that question? I would have spent 2 years wondering that. That was the most incredible question ever.
Thanks,
Could
mate.
I do it? Was I ready to do it? Would I cope with it? When it comes, try writing 65 lot descriptions.
Oh, you bloody wrote them, did you?
Well, I want the stories to be told. I don't want to buy the watch because it's a model this, and this. And so, it took, I was lucky. One of my best mates, we met on Paneristi in 2007, Jeff Hess.
Yeah.
He's the head of Sotheby's to the Americas now. He came with Vincent, his next head, and then probably the world's greatest vintage Rolex expert, Jed Lee.
Yeah.
They came and they got, and so, I thought about it, was it going to be hard to let them go? Was I ready to let them go? And, I thought, well, it's got to have, it was really sad. And so every day, I'm spending 4 or 5 hours a day on the phone, and of course, Sotheby's are all excited and this is going to be great. And I'm going, not so much for me. But I got past that. There was a lot of sadness, but a lot of that is going to be gone when I see them and when I get to meet the people who have got them. And I can say that in the last 3 weeks, I'm finally really at peace with it. But it was really hard. I thought, got to do it. It's got to be done. If I don't do it now, it'll happen the way I don't want it to happen. So, just idiot, turn your brain in and cop it sweet. I've copped a lot of other things sweet. So, it was sad, but I reached a point where now I'm really happy about it. Like I can't wait to meet the people and talk to people who are going to look after them for the next generation. Like,
That's kind of cool.
Well, it's also a burden as well. That's sort of, I mean, obviously the burden of having to deal with it all, but the burden of hundreds of thousands of dollars of watches that you've been the custodian for and you've looked after, and you've had to insure and you've had to do all that stuff with it. Now you kind of don't. It's sort of liberating in a sense.
And also, you don't have to leave it for your family as well. Like, it's your responsibility.
Again, Felix, you're right on the money. So when my mum passed away, the place where my mum and dad lived was full of a lifetime of treasures, right? But in reality, when they pass, there's some things that are saleable as estate items with a commercial value, but 90% of the things end up in the rubbish. And so I skip rubbish. It's like a bin, they got 20-foot shipping, and we'd throw the rubbish in rubbish. On the very last day I left and locked the door for the last time, I wheeled over to the side of the big garbage thing with all the last lot of garbage, and I couldn't see over it. But back then I had a lot more function than now. I reached up and I grabbed the top of the side and I pulled myself up and I looked out, and all I could see were things that reminded me about mum and dad. Like my dad was my best friend, my best mate, best man at my wedding. Like he's the best friend I've had, and my mum was even better. And so here I am looking at all these memories in the rubbish bin. And so, I thought that is one thing I would say, again, important that you mentioned that. I wanted to save my family that. I wanted to save them. And not just the watches. I'm letting go of just about everything. I don't want them to ever have to know that feeling I felt that day, because you don't forget that feeling. It's with you for life. A bit like herpes and old luggage. Once you get it, I think it's with you for life.
That's not, let's not talk about Felix too much. This is about you,
Wherever you go, there you are.
So I think if I can take anything away from your story and situation, Hammer, it's it's not really been about the watches. It's been about the people you met along the way.
The journey.
It's the journey to get here, and I mean it has to end one way or the other. What advice, kind of, you've had an extraordinary life and you still do, but what advice do you have for your younger self? What do you wish you could go back and tell yourself about your life?
Well, I had a pretty amazing life before the accident. I did a lot of crazy things, bull riding in rodeo. I did a lot of things. And it's funny, like when you really come to terms and you're not afraid of death, when you lose the fear of death, life becomes very different. And I've reached that point well and truly now. Things that you used to think were really important just aren't anymore. Yep. But things that you just took for granted become the most meaningful of all. And so, I think the journey and what you learn, and that's the purpose of life. And we hopefully pass on to our children, the next generation, and try and give them what we've learned, and hope that they can help in some way to make the world a little bit better place. So, would I do it again? Would I do all the crazy activities? I did 30 years of martial arts. I fought in the ring. I did everything I deserved to do to get a spinal cord injury. Only when the accident happened, it wasn't my fault. I had no idea. Someone did something behind me. I didn't even see it coming. You couldn't do it again if you try. You couldn't set it up. It was a 1 in a million thing. And that was a bit hard to cope with in the beginning, because the guy, you wonder a lot, would it have been easier if it was your own fault? Because then at least you could self-hate on yourself and blame yourself. But when it's someone else's fault, I don't know if it makes it easier or not. I'll never know the answer to that. But, just hey, that's what God put in my pathway. And, I always think You can get knocked over, and I've been knocked over a lot in life. I've failed as well. I've failed more times than I've scored, but as long as you keep getting back up, that's all that matters. You know, now my life is not that great, and I'm not afraid of dying. And I know, in fact, the last time I was in ICU when they came to get all my watches, I couldn't be involved in that. Like, I never even got a wrist shot of all of the watches together. You know, and so, you know, I just sort of look back now and think life is about the most simplest things. I've got a dog that's your life becomes so minimalistic, you know, and it's not about what you have or where you go or what you do. It's about the moments, and it's about the journey, and everyone has their own journey. And, you know, you try to make the most of the journey. And for me, you know, our watches, from the time I was 8 years old, there's a story about how I went and found and bought my first watch. You know, watches have been the biggest part of my life. And the other thing I decided to do in 2013, I trained every day at a place in Brisbane called Sporting Wheelies and Disabled Association. So Panerai has a get-together every year. It's called P-Day. And I used to make a watch, and it would be auctioned.
Yep.
And all the money went to Sporting Wheelies. And I started racing in the world's most dangerous endurance tarmac rallies, like Target Tasmania, like 7-day, all-day tarmac racing. And so I wanted to raise $100,000 to bring that program I went to in America here to Brisbane. Yeah. And every year I made a new watch, and every year I learnt a new skill, you know, open working, chamfering, or, you know, and every year I wanted to make the next watch better than the first. And I've raised well over $250,000 for them.
Hey,
that
nice.
program is up and running now. And had I been an Asia D and not an A, I probably would have gone to that and I'd be up and moving. But you know, it feels great to see I got to see a lot of other people doing that program, and knowing that what I was doing by making watches and auctioning them at watch events was helping people walk again. I mean, what could be better than that?
Yeah, that's genuinely amazing. You said, Hammer, that, you know, Sotheby's took all your watches except for a few, and I understand. So they're auctioning off 61 of your watches.
I think so. Yes.
Are you keeping any, like, for your family or friends, or?
Yes.
What can you say? What watches, and how was that decided?
Okay, I'll give you one quick one. So yes, I demanded 3 of them back. Actually, 4 of them, because 3 of the 4 are written in my new will, by the way. It's waiting to be done. I've gifted them to people, mates. So they can't be sold because they're being, and in fact, not to let the cat out of the bag, but a certain individual in, hope he's not watching, he wouldn't be watching it. He's about to get the shock of his life December the 6th at the event. So I kept, you know, a few watches, but only because I'm giving them to people.
And that must be cool.
The first one will be given on December the 6th to a man who I just fucking, oh, sorry.
No, it's okay.
That's fine. That's fine.
I love the shit out of this guy. You know, he's a hero to me, and so I can't wait to give it to him. It's a really nice watch too. And so there's one watch. I remember I did this 3-hour interview. As you can tell, I'm not short at talking. I don't die, apparently. I really suck at dying. And but I've got no problem talking. But I did this thing with the Financial Times, and I said, so, and I, you know, when you start making your own watches and taking an embarge and trying to, you know, put modules onto it and, you know, doing all of, you know, every year trying to learn even black polish, you know, I mean, it was crazy. I remember one day I had 6 bridge screws and I wanted to black polish them. And I spent all day, I bought all the old vintage tools, no modern stuff, you know, all by hand, and I got them to the final stage, and my wife had the family, had a few family friends over, and you know, I've come out and I've got bloody dirt and muck all over my hands, and in my hand is, I think there was 6 or 8 these tiny little screws. So you know, I don't know the pitch, but 0.7 of them, they were small. And I'm like that. I go, look, just look. And I'd move my arm. Let's tilt it. And I'd go from chrome to black chrome. And they're like, is that what you've been doing all day? I go, yeah. Didn't you start that at like 7? Yeah. And that's what you've done. I go, yeah. Okay. Happy trails. Whatever makes it, what was it? Whatever floats your boat. So, yeah, you know, but here's something that I don't know that anybody knows, and it might be a bit of a scoop, and it might ask a few questions. Perhaps I'm wrong, but I've always loved Daytonas. I've got some incredible vintage Daytonas in the auction. Some that, anyway, I love Daytonas. I love chronographs, bicompacts. You know, I love chronographs. And so, you know, in my life, I would say that 85% of all of the watches that are at the auction have never been worn.
Wow.
Maybe 90% have never been worn. They've been on my wrist for a photo, but I didn't buy them to wear them. In fact, I bought a lot of watches I don't even really like, but I didn't buy them for the watch. I bought them for the so much more than just the watch. I bought them for the story and the history. And so I don't need to wear them to get that. And so, you know, I'm a watch collector. I've got a great collection, but I don't wear the collection. I've got about 6 or 7 watches that I just always wear, and I rotate those. So over the years in my watches, I've had so many of the Zenith-based El Primero Daytonas. Then, what was it, like 1998 or something? Rolex came out with the 4030, their first in-house caliber. And then eventually the 4130. And so they started with the 116520 and the 116, you know, that range of references, right? So I've probably had 12 or 13 of the Daytonas. I used to love putting, you know, the exotic dials in and fitting the red hands, and you know, I love Daytonas. And so one day I've got in 2017, I got the chance to buy a platinum Daytona. I saw it the year before it came out with the novelties, right? The second I saw it, I'm like, that's me, I'm done. That's it. Where's the checkered flag? And so the following year when they became available, my authorised dealer here in Brisbane at Hourglass, I think Kevin now, I think he had 4. Couldn't sell them. I wouldn't sell. No one to buy them. And as you know today, and mine is even more special because it's got the glacier dial.
Yes, very rare.
No caramel. Oh, yeah, it's got the big. So, you know, I love that watch. It's so freaking heavy. I'm in the wheelchair. I don't even need to think about what watch I'm wearing, right? Because as I'm pushing the wheelchair, I'm making these long concentric left-hand turns. The watch is so bloody heavy that when the arm went down, and so, you know, I'm going, I got the Platinum Daytona on today. I'm going to the left. And so I had, it weighs a ton. So I was sitting there, and I think I had a 116528 and a couple of 1165, and I'm looking at them all, and I'm thinking, something's just not right. And for me, it's the things that really excite me are the little nuances, little things that nobody's ever spotted, like, you know, like on an early buckle where there's no mark, whether it's stainless or finding in the bloody weirdest, in the middle of the underside of a curve, finding a stamp. So I'm looking, I'm just going, something's wrong here. Got the micrometer out. The Platinum Daytona is slightly bigger. The case is bigger than a regular, than all the other Daytonas. It's bigger, slightly bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine retooling the 2 or 3 lines?
Yeah.
Now, maybe, I don't know. You know, maybe I needed glasses, but it was slightly bigger. And I thought, how cool is that? Like, it is slightly bigger.
Platinum.
Yeah, and so the platinum. And so I got that one. I loved it. I fell in love with it. And my son saw it one day, and he said, "Oh, Dad." Of course, he's a bit of a watch geek. Don't know where he got that from. Probably his mother.
His mum, yeah.
He certainly didn't get his good looks from me, that's for sure. But you know, he saw it and he's like, "Oh, Dad, I've never said this to you before, but Dad, please don't sell that one. Leave that one to me." And when I was asked the question about what watch am I keeping, I'm keeping that one because he's going to remember me wearing it in my final years. And so when I'm gone, he'll always have that watch and it'll always remind him of his dad. And then when he has kids, maybe I have a son, and one day he'll be able to pass it on and say. And so that's a watch where there's no story. You know, there was no story. I bought it simply because I absolutely loved it. And so I'm putting the story. It might be a crappy story, sure, but I'm giving the watch a story. He'll add to the story, and then hopefully his next generation. And so maybe over time that watch will have a story. So I'm keeping that one. And I'm finding it very hard to sell my vintage California 3646 vintage Panerai. That's another one that they're trying to pry me out of, but you know, at the end of the day, time to let go. It's time, you know, just time to let go. But yes, I'll end up keeping probably 3. And that's separate to the 4 or 5 that I'm gifting to people. So there are a few.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, it sounds like you got good reason. I'm sure Felix will look forward to receiving his Patek on December 6th.
Yeah.
I got the wrist for Panerai.
I've actually got this Omega that I got in the 80s. It's really good. It's a bit of a project though, but I'll send you as many parts as I could find on the floor of the wardrobe.
No, I think what Felix is, his dream watch is the Gerard Perregaux. Is it the Chrono Hawk?
Oh, mate, yeah. Look. No, honestly, you've got an incredible collection, and it's like you said, like some of the banner ones are. There's that Royal Navy, Royal Australian Navy, you know, clearance diver watch that's got all the trimmings.
Yeah, first mill sub, it was made in 1 year, and that was like 15 years before they came out with the 5517. You know, there's some pretty amazing pieces.
There's some genuinely significant watches, not just Panerai. Like, obviously, you know, your Panerai and synonymous. And I really hope for everything involved that, you know, these Panerais are hyped to high heaven because, you know, that's what it's all about. We'll link up the notes, you know, where you know, the auction are. Some of them I think are being sold online, but the bulk of them are in New York.
I'll just that all up to Jeff. You know, we've been mates for so long now, and you know, if he knows, he'll know what to do. But yeah, some are going online. You know, I didn't want to just put in pieces that were going to be super expensive. I want my mates to be able to, you know, maybe get themselves something to remember our time with, because you know, 25 years or so, I've been connected. And along the journey, the best part of the journey is the mateships I've made through the watches. You know, even to this day, I spoke to 4 people this morning on the phone, and they're all people I met in 2000 or 2001 on Paneristi.com. Wow. They're all coming to New York to meet me, and they go, "Oh, wild." And so the greatest gift that the watches ever gave me was the mates that I met along the way. Can you imagine that Southern Cal get together? I got a picture over there, and just all these people. I didn't know who anyone was because no one put photos of themselves up, and you know.
You probably recognise the watches before the people.
There was one guy who was a Kiwi. You got to watch them buggers. You know, they sneak in with the rest of us. He's from the land where men are men and sheep are nervous. Can I say that?
Look, I think you're treading a fine line there, but I was going to say, yeah, we've got a saying here. Like, we've got to talk to you, but I don't think we will. The saying is the brands don't love you back. Like it's easy to be, in the limelight of the brand while you're sort of helping them out, but they can easily forget about you. I don't think you can say the same about the community and the people that that you meet along the way. So that's incredible. That you've still got those really dear friends 20 years on. I mean, I've only met you a handful of times, but I'm so glad we can talk now and have this opportunity to sort of help promote your auction.
Oh, great. I mean, at the end of the day, I can tell you a big chunk of whatever we raise is going to find its way to the sporting wheelies and disabled. So if anybody can find it in their heart to buy something, not only will I be happy to talk to you and tell you the story behind it, know that you're going to be helping a lot of people, some of which saving them a life in a wheelchair.
Yeah,
that's very important to me, that foundation I set up. Every cent goes direct to them. I'm not even involved. They donate to them. So, look, if anyone could think of if anyone could find it in their heart to buy something, that would be
or
great.
even just bid a little bit, bid the price up a bit.
I don't know a lot about auctions, only eBay. They're the only auctions. So I've never really, it's kind of a first for me. I don't know. I've been learning it. Boy, oh boy, is it involved.
Yeah, mate.
4 months worth. The last 4 months, I've been just churning it every day. So, yeah.
Lucky you got Jeff Hess to look after you. That helps. Having friends at the
You're in
top.
good hands. You're in safe hands.
He's a legend. And I got Jed too. And
yes.
Yeah, the greatest, because the hunt for the watch it's like, I call it an Indiana Jones moment. That one watch, 12 years I tried to buy it. First took me 4 years to find who owned it. Then every year, every 6, just a quick little email. Hey, just saying hello. Remember, if you ever want to sell it. 12 years later, the guy goes, well, my son's off to, so he needs a college degree. Do you want to buy it? I'm like, let me think about it. Yes. So that's an Indiana Jones moment, the hunt for that piece, that next piece, that hunt that you start, ask this guy, but he saw that. But that hunt, and then when it's finally within your reach, you start getting an Indiana Jones moment. And guess what? Sometimes you just don't get them. You miss out. Someone else paid more. That's life. That just makes it even sweeter when you do.
And now you're part of that hunt as well, because I got the email from Sotheby's, just like a press release email, when I was in Dubai and I was having breakfast with.
Doing it tough.
I was doing it tough. It was very, very difficult. I was there for a watch event, and James Dowling, Mr. Rolex, was on the table next to me. I said, "Oh wow, Hammer's auctioning off all these things." James just listened up and he said, "Oh really? Can you send that to me? He's got a Rolex dial I want." So.
Well, it's funny because I've got a dial that he sent me a few years ago that I've been working on restoring for him. I owe him a dial and a story.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah. He's a good cat. Yeah.
He'll call you to collect.
Okay, I'll see if I can't try and prime him up with something. Maybe I can get it together faster. Of course, when you're in bed, what do? I can't do anything. Not like I could start working on his dial. But what a strange coincidence. Yeah. No, I owe him a dial and an explanation.
Yeah. Anyway, Hammer, it's been truly an honour to know you and to speak to you, and really great for you to tell your story. And all the best with the auction.
Thank you. And like I said, if anyone can find it in their heart, just know that some of the funds are going to the right places. And of course, I've got children and a wife that are going to need to be looked after when I'm gone. And all I can say is, when I was 8 years old, my dad was a stockman, and so I grew up in the country. And he used to call it his tool. My mum would say, "Come home, be home by 5 o'clock," and I'm like, 8 years old. How am I going to know when it's 5 o'clock? Like, you get used to where the sun is, and And my dad always had this thing on his wrist that could tell the time, and I was besotted with it. I just thought, how cool is that? And so when I was 8, I started saving money, mowings, and, for 3 years to save enough money to take a 3-hour bus trip into the city to Brisbane to buy my first watch. And, I used to get in trouble at school because I was sitting there looking at it, watching it, teacher, what's distracting you? So, my love of watches has made my life so beautiful, and the people in it so beautiful. I can only say that if what I've got is as a result of being a watch collector, we need more watch collectors. If you're sad or you need passion, think about putting it into the watches, because it's the people and the journey behind the watches. It just makes them so much more.
Yep. Outstanding. Thanks, Hammer.
It's so nice of Hammer to come on and have a chat with us. Time's so precious, and I'm grateful that he spent an hour or so with us talking.
Yeah, it's important. And it's good to think about these things, I think, beyond that acquisition side of it.
Mm-hmm.
As always, thank you so much, first of all, to Alan for coming on. I know, time is precious, as I say. Thank you so much for this week's sponsor, Zodiac Watches, and to Mike for jumping on. Also, thank you to everyone listening. Andy, how should people, stay in touch with us and, get involved in chats?
Our Discord is the place to start. We talk about it every single week. That's because we're talking in it every single day. So that's the place to start. Obviously, social media, ot.podcast on Instagram. We'll link up everywhere else. Of course, Felix. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, talk about OT the podcast, share it to your Instagram stories, scream it from the rooftops, gift someone an episode for Christmas if you can figure out how to do it.
Look, we've got an e-commerce platform set up. If you want to specifically buy an episode, we can make that happen.
We will do a tailored episode just for your loved ones for Christmas for the small price.
We should like Cameo styles.
We'll do a custom episode for $5,000.
Oh,
bargain. Felix, don't tell me off. He's messaging me saying it was too cheap.
Per minute, Andy, per minute.
Per minute, yeah. All right, we'll see you next week, guys.
See you later.